What's that like? What's going on, people? Hey, it's your old pal Johnny here from the What's That Like podcast. And here we are, another new episode, another new guest. And I'm really so excited to bring this one to you, as I've been trying to get him on the show for, well, I'll let you on a little secret. Yesterday was the 7th anniversary of the first What's That Like podcast. So here we are, 7th birthday. We're on the 8th guest of the new season. And I'm really excited to bring one of the most interesting people I know in this 3-county area that we kind of service to, and that's Cary Eisentraut. Cary, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you because you are one of the most unique people I know. It's like if there was anybody that was Hollywood in Central Illinois, it's you. But you're also the most down-to-earth person. As I talk to you every now and then, I bump into you at places like the Opera House or whatever.
Yeah.
But Cary, who are you? What do you do? Let's tell everyone.
Well, my name's Cary Eisentraut, and I run Eisentraut Theaters. We have 8 locations across Illinois and Iowa. I've been in the movie theater. John, I'm going to turn 40 next month, and that will mark my 40th year in the movie theater business because I was literally born into this business. My dad was running a theater in Iowa, and they were living in the apartment above it, and I was born. They took me to a theater, and so I've just lived in theaters. It's in my blood, John. So that's who I am and what I do.
So
among other things, but
yeah, you've got a whole story. We're going to get to all of it, but let's talk about when you were little. So you grew up in Iowa, right? Take me back to that theater. What was your mom and dad doing at the time?
Well, Dad was he got his first job managing a theater when he was 15 in Des Moines, Iowa. So he worked for Fridley Theaters. Bob Fridley was the owner, and worked his way up and became the manager of their flagship theater in Des Moines. And so he then branched off. Fridley sent him to Muscatine, Iowa, which is along the Mississippi, and to run a theater over there that he just bought. And that's where I was born. I was born in Muscatine. So that's where my story started. And then we lived in Muscatine for a couple of years. And then my dad decided to branch out on his own, buy his own theater, and bought a couple theaters, Independence, Iowa, Tipton, Iowa. But then the Fox Theater in Fort Madison, Iowa is the theater that I grew up in. And we moved to Fort Madison in 1988. And that's where I spent my childhood. I was a child of the 90s. I mean, I was born around the mid 80s, but I was a child of the 90s, full in arcades and video rentals. And, you see those posts, Video Nostalgia has these on Facebook. And I'm just like, I go through posts like, yeah, that's what I did. Well, I remember that. And I get very sentimental with those things and nostalgic. But so I grew up in Fort Madison, beautiful little town right on the Mississippi River. And I used to help my dad do everything. I learned how to thread a 35 millimeter projector when I was 5 years old. And so that I helped clean, I helped sell candy. That was the experiences. Seeing my dad my dad used to do all the kinds of things we're doing now. The over the top sort of stuff. And he used to have drawings, and you'd tear your ticket, put it in a popcorn bucket, and he'd give away stuff on the stage. And he was very, he was a lot of my inspiration for watching him as a kid for how I kind of run theaters now. And so, but yeah, then he sold the Fox Theater in 97, and we moved out to the country. But then he got a job selling dumpsters for a few years, and then cars for a few years, and he hated it. He hated all of that. I mean, he liked the people he worked for. Made some new friends, great friends, but it was just when you're in the movie theater business, it's just, there's something about it. It's kind of like a drug, where the highs from the big crowds and the the excitement of it all, new movies. What are they going to do? You never know how movies are going to open. They could be predicted to do well, but until you get there, sometimes a movie just you didn't see coming just blows the doors off the place, and that's a thrill, But we had been out of the business for 7 years, let's say 5 or 6 years. And then 2003, he was working at a car dealership in Fort Madison, Iowa. And I was working at the same dealership. And we used to meet kind of in his office when it was like 100 degrees outside. And, the boss wants you on the lot, greeting customers. Well, every once in a while, you got to sneak into the air conditioning. Right. We used to have these little secret meetings in his office just to cool off for a little bit. But I remember him saying, he had been looking at theaters online, and we were just talking and dreaming and saying, I just remember he said, wouldn't that just be the dream to buy a theater again and have the time of our lives? And that was kind of that was the summer of 2003. And then by November of 2003, we had all come down here to Hillsboro, to the Orpheum, toured it, and the rest is history, as they say, John.
The rest is history. So. Where's your dad today?
I think in the bathroom right now. But
is he in Hillsboro with you?
Yeah, he's in Hillsboro.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually was just talking to him, telling him I was doing this, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to leave you alone." So he left. I don't know. He probably went home or something. But
that is such a good. You're a comedian. That's great. I mean, I just set it on a tee for you, and you hit it. That was perfect. That was perfect. Yeah. So what put Hillsboro on the radar? Was the Orpheum for sale?
Well, actually, believe it or not, so he used to come home from the dealership at night and get on dial-up internet, and he found a theater in Colorado because we were seriously considering doing this, and he had found a theater for sale in Colorado and started talking to that guy, and almost made a plan to go out there. He almost took a job working for a theater company in the Turks and Caicos and almost moved our whole family to the Turks, which in hindsight, I mean, that would have been.
It would have been our loss in this area had you gone. I don't know about yours, but it would have been our loss. Continue.
Well, it would have been my loss too, because I have my wife and my daughter here. So, that guy though said he had a friend in Hillsboro, Illinois, who was trying to sell his theater, and it was a lot closer to us, and so we looked on that, and that's how the guy in Colorado put us in touch with the owners of the Orpheum at the time. And so Gene and Rich Dickey had bought it from Norman Paul, and they were running it in 2003. And so we came down and visited with them, and that's how we made that deal. So that's kind of how we came here, if that's what the question was.
It was the question.
What was the question, John?
Yeah, okay. It was exactly the question. How'd you get to Hillsboro? So now
I-55.
You bought the Orpheum, but now you said you own 8 theaters. So how did you
9?
How did you get growing?
Technically 9 if you count the Grand, but great question. We had the Orpheum, and we had poured everything, because the Orpheum at the time, the only thing he had of any value to his name, besides like a life insurance policy, was this old 1960s Crown bus that he had gone to California, restored, and we used it for our band in high school to tour around the Midwest and play. And it was just that. But he sold that bus to fund the move to Hillsboro and the down money. We leased it. We leased the Orpheum at first, and then bought it a couple of years later. But that was how we got down here by basically it was that, and the first few years, it was all we thought about. We were brainstorming, we were thinking of everything creative thing. We couldn't let it fail. It could not fail, because there wasn't a plan B, really, is what I'm trying to say there, in a roundabout way. So failure was not an option, really. and that might be reckless, but it's also how we're here now.
It's motivating, and when it isn't, it's going to motivate you to keep going, right? Because you can't lay back and let it come to you.
No, you really can't. And so we really, at the time, we did not have much of anything except our name in this theater here. And so we worked really, really hard those first few years, doing big promotions. Everything had to outdo the last thing we did. And it was a lot of work, but we finally, in 2007 is when we started branching out to other theaters. We bought the Canna Theater, which is in Gillespie.
Right.
We bought that from the city. It had been abandoned, and the high school was using it for maybe some practices, or had used it for a couple productions, but it really wasn't in use for anything. And so we bought that, and my wife and I got married in May of 2007. And so we got married, and we eventually moved into that theater a few years later, but it was that month we opened the Canna and got married. And so then that was our second theater. And then Norman Paul, one year, it was summer of 2007. I was working the Orpheum, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and there weren't many people. I don't think anybody but 2 or 3 other people were there for this. But this old gentleman comes walking in, and he had somebody with him helping him. And I thought, okay, I held the door for him and greeted him, and he walked in the theater. And I remember it being kind of an obscure movie for somebody that age to come see, but it was, it was fine. But turns out that was Norman Paul, who owned the Skyview in Litchfield, the Marvel in Carlinville, the drive-in there. I mean, the bowling alley, he was kind of the great showman of Macoupin County in Montgomery County, but he owned the Orpheum as well. And he's the one who twinned the Orpheum in '76. So Norman Paul was a big name as far as movie theater owners go in this area. So, but he had come down, and he was getting old, and he had been running the Marvel still at he was like 90 at the time. And then he approached us, and he asked if Jeff was around. So I said, yeah, and went and got Dad and met him. And we then set a meeting to go over to the Marvel and look at it. And we got to the Marvel, and Norman just said, I want you to operate the Marvel Theater. And so that was theater number 3. That was 2007. And that was the winter, late November, I think, 2007. That was theater number 3. And then we, that for a few years, and then Keokuk, Iowa. That was our 4th, and that was in a mall. It was River City Mall, and not a big mall. It was more like an indoor strip mall.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a theater there, and it was the theater I went to as a kid too. So it was a 3-plex, and I knew that theater pretty well. So then we made a deal with the mall to go run that, and that was our 4th theater. And then Pana. Yes, Pana. How could I forget Pana? That was a great story too. So I remember this was like 2009. My mom and Dad had gone on a date, and they came back. They said, "Hey, we went to this movie theater. You and Sammy got to go check it out sometime. It's in Pana, and it's the Roseland, and it's like a step back in time, And so I was like, okay. So we went there, and I remember we saw Monster House, the Steven Spielberg cartoon, but I walked in, and I was just blown away. You would not believe the size of this auditorium, John, and there was like 700 seats in there. Wow. And I mean, it really was it's a nice theater in there, and the marquee was beautiful. It was just in Pana. It was just a very much like a little gem in that downtown district that had been in disrepair. Now there's great things going on in Pana now, but at the time it was a standout little store there, or storefront building. And so then we went and kind of kind of reached out. I think my dad went again and introduced himself to Selma. It was Bill and Selma Horton, and they were in their 70s or 80s. But Bill had ran the projectors from like 1950 something. But they still at the time were running reel-to-reel projectors, the old carbon arc projectors, which had been long gone. No theater were running these things. I mean, obviously some were because they still had the carbon rods and stuff, but I had been in the theaters for years at that point. I'd never seen those projectors except for the basement of the Canna where they were. But I mean, but that was a whole art in itself, was reel to reel projectors. And so I got to actually experience that. My dad, I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place here, John.
That's what this is for, Cary. It's okay. I mean, this is a long conversation. That's okay.
I'm a great rambler, and sometimes I get off and I'm like, hey, Cary, get back on that street.
You're all good.
But so we're onto the Roseland here, and Bill had health issues, the owner of Bill Horton, and he still was doing the reel-to-reel projectors, which, if you didn't know, was they actually had a projectionist union in the 1970s because this was such a job. A projectionist would have to load all the reels of film used to come on about 18-minute long reels. The standard decorative reels you see on everybody's walls now.
Mm-hmm.
But those used to actually, they have film wrapped around them, and you'd load a projector, thread it through, and then you'd hit play and you'd feed the carbon rod. It would spark there, and that was the light. It was just a burning carbon rod with reflectors, and you'd start it. But then, John, if you remember watching movies, I don't know. Do you know? I mean, how far does your projector knowledge go here? Are you familiar with reel-to-reel?
I'm going to say I kind of understand the process. I've been in the booth.
Okay.
For some reason, I was in the booth in the Litchfield Theater here one time back in the 70s, not in the 70s, somewhere in the 80s or 90s. Yeah. So I've seen it a little bit. Am I an expert? No way. That's why I got you on the show.
well, I don't. Okay. Thank you for that compliment. But the carbon. So the projector you would have seen was a newer 35 millimeter projector where they had the platters, and you'd take the reels. They'd come in cans, and you'd 5 or 6 reels of film, and you'd splice it all together on one big platter, and then you'd thread it through a projector onto another platter on the same system, and then they'd just spin and feed itself. It was real easy, right? These projectors, though, in Pana, were like the old ones where you would, at the 18-minute mark, typically on a movie, you remember you used to see those little black dots and the flash up in the...
Yeah.
Well, that was a projectionist cue to start the next projector. So he'd see that spot, he'd have the other projector already threaded up with reel 2 and struck lit. You see that dot, he'd hit a pedal, and that would start that projector, and then that would go, and then he'd have
18 minutes
to do the next one, get that already. So you really couldn't leave the booth. That's why all these old projection booths, you're going to find a toilet and a sink and because it was just a full-time job. Like it was high pressure, and there was a lot to remember, and but it's a lot easier now. You just push play.
Yeah. And that's really how the movie business changed in the last, what, Cary, 20 years? Is it 10 years, 15 years? I mean, everything's in digital.
Coming up on 20 years.
Digital projectors now, right? Mm-hmm. Which, so in the old days of movies, you would get shipped big cans of film. Mm-hmm. And today, do you just download it? Do you get a hard drive in the mail? What was the evolution there?
Well, so there used to be a film depot in St. Louis we'd drive to every Friday. Out Earth City, out in that area, and we'd pick up cans of film and bring them back and take them, just like that. Well, then when everything started going digital, I remember we went digital in 2013. We bought our first digital projectors, and then they would ship you these hard drives, and they were like this big, you know. Each file film, it just depends on how big the movie is, but a couple hundred gigs usually. And you would put that into a server and load the movie on there, and then you get an encrypted key that is timestamped. So it opens at this time, and then it'll, however long you play the movie for. I mean, all new releases are a 2-week minimum. You have to play them. And so sometimes, you know, but the keys have to be loaded in order to play that file on the screen. Now, just this last year, we actually installed satellite at all of our locations. And so now all our movies are shipped to us by satellite to a central server we have at each location. And same process, though. You have to have the encrypted key to unlock the movie and play it. But I tell you what, Godzilla is unlocked right now, and I might just go over there and watch it now before everybody else tonight. So, because usually they'll open the movies. The key will open usually like a day or a day and a half before the public release, just so you can check it and make sure everything's good and you don't have a faulty file or something, you know. So, but yeah, that's it.
Well, now you've got me down a thread, because I'm interested in the physical part of this and how it has evolved over the years. So what is a digital projector and this whole part of equipment? You got it in 8 theaters. What does this cost you? I mean, per?
Well, a lot less now than it used to.
Really?
That was the thing. We were in LA in 2006. We always used to go out to Vegas for the theater owners convention, you know, and then we'd just do a couple days there, and then we like to drive out to LA and just go to theaters and do all that stuff out there. And so, but I remember we were at Grauman's Chinese Theater in 2006, Starsky and Hutch, and that was the first movie I'd ever seen in digital projection. And I mean, it was a difference. Like, you saw the picture was still, it was bright, it was clear. It really, when you went from only seeing film to that, it was like, whoa, like, what is this? So that was my first experience. But then the projectors at that time, they were like $100,000. I mean, probably at least. And then I remember when we were starting, so all the studios were phasing out of film, right, at this time. And that was a scary time for theaters, for small town theaters, because, I mean, you know, like, I don't know, we had Pana and Gillespie, they both, you know, they weren't making us rich, you know, they were breaking even, and we were just happy that we were able to have those theaters open in those towns for those communities, you know, that, because we feel like movie theaters are a very, very key ingredient to the health of a town, you know, to its culture, you know, whatever. But so the price tag on a digital projector back then was $60,000, which, I mean,
it's hard to justify that.
It's hard to justify to a bank, like, that. But based on your business model, we were. So I remember the fear of it, and we held on to film as long as we could. And then finally, studios were not releasing certain big movies on 35 millimeter film anymore, and so we just had to, like, take the plunge. I put together this whole package, like, thing for the bank. It was in a big binder, and they went, yeah. And also there was help with this from the studios at the time. Called a VPF, and that was a virtual print fee. So part of the studios stopping film was they were going to help theaters make the conversion, because honestly, it was a lot. It made sense for the studios, because each print of film, 35 millimeter film, was like $2,000 $2,500, something like that to strike. And I mean, then you go to just digital drives, which, I mean, it's like $100 for
and you reuse them.
The drive. Yeah. And you reuse them. And so that just made perfect sense, for the studios. But so what they were going to do, they did this VPF program where it was a big thing, and you had to sign up and go through all these hoops and everything. And, but they paid so much per movie at the time that you'd show towards the conversion, the digital conversion. And so that helped fund the Orpheum. They didn't have one for Pana at the time. And so we did a Kickstarter for Pana. And I mean, that was amazing. It was so fun. But we bought a digital projector for, I remember it was 2015, I think. And and so that saved Pana. Gillespie, that was, we couldn't make that. And that was my favorite theater at the time, just because I kind of felt like it was the Grand, it was like this cute little theater off
the main street,
off the side street,
yep.
And it was just kind of this little oasis, you'd go in there and my wife and I lived in the apartment above that for like 4 or 5 years.
There's a little deco. So, it's still there. You can go see it. Little Art Deco kind of building. Yeah.
Yep. And so that was we unfortunately had to stop operations there, and sold that off to a Assembly of God church over there. But then Keokuk made the conversion then after that, and then as the years were starting to go on, we were finding it was the equipment was like second generation equipment. So you had first generation and then second generation equipment, and so a lot of those early fears then were all of a sudden cited a little bit, because used equipment was coming off, and you'd get a projector for $5,000 now, 5 to 10. I mean, $5,000. You have to probably have a server installed. Servers are a big price. They're usually $6,000 for a new server, and but the projectors, I mean, you can get a new one now for 30, I think.
So Cary, you mentioned the generations. Are you worried the movie studios are going to keep forcing you into upgrades, or is that kind of stabilized?
I think that's kind of stabilized a little bit, at least for now. I mean, you never say never, but I felt like for a long time there, and we held off. 3D was a big thing, a big push for studios to upcharge tickets, and the studios used to get a little I don't know what the word is, but like would pressure you to upgrade a little bit. They couldn't force you to, and there was no way to do that, but they were really pushing their 3D movies. This is going back to Avatar, the first Avatar, and then I feel like every movie, every family animated movie from Avatar till just a few years ago were 3D, and the big thing was 3D. But now, I mean, where is it?
Yeah.
What's going on with 3D?
It just kind of died.
You don't
I remember.
See it. And we held off the temptation. That was all my dad. Because I kind of fell into that same temptation. I'm like, we got to do this in 3D, Dad. We got to do the upgrades. And he was like, no, it'll come and go. And then what are we going to be left with? Because the studios had restrictions on, I remember that's what it was. It was, if you had 3D capabilities, you had to show a 3D movie at 7. You couldn't show it. And so they were really very controlling with, when you could do it, how you could do it, or whatever. So, but yeah, so resisted that, and here we are.
Yeah. So Cary, what's it like being a small independent theater owner in a world of megaplexes, where kind of their agenda is pushed on? Tell me if I'm wrong. the first week or two of a movie, you really don't make the money. It's in the further weeks down the road, the longer it's in. And does the percentage of box office change?
Well, yes. So you're kind of half right there.
I'll take half.
We do all business is in the first, second weeks. Any movie, like that's when you basically, if you're going to make money on that movie, that's when you have to play it. Now, the percentages do start to go down after the second or third week. And I mean, it's so different now than it was even a couple of years ago with streaming coming, and the theatrical window has just closed to, and this is all, I feel like this is all because of COVID and streaming at the time, but they shrunk it down to, you might see a movie, if it bombed in the box office, you're going to definitely be able to buy it digitally within a couple weeks, and then probably on a streaming service within a month or two, so yes, usually, like right now, if we wanted to play something that opened in early February, yeah, you could get it for 35% ticket. That's and usually a 250 minimum, 300 minimum guarantee. But now the highest we've ever paid is 64% for Force Awakens. I think it was 64%. And so yes, but those are all the first the new release terms, and so then after that, and that's where it's kind of like, yeah, but once a movie has been out for a few weeks into that 35% bracket, then all of a sudden it's like, well, it's
nobody's showing up anyway.
Nobody's watching it anymore. You already had, you missed the chance to show this, and that's how the industry has kind of changed now compared to, I don't know, like a few years ago. I don't know. It used to be you'd have to wait a year for the movie to come out on video, and then it's just, I remember for a long time it was at 3 months, and that was, we were worried about that, having movies be at 3 months, and then once, because that kind of killed the dollar theater a little bit, was when that window shrunk, and then now you don't see dollar theaters anymore. I mean, they're a thing of the past because streaming and
right,
and that. So.
Right. So this leads into my next question for you. The studios squeeze you on the dollars. You've said you have to get them up front, which means the premiere weekend is almost everything, which is why you shine, I believe. Yeah. Right? You do the most awesome for a small theater, and I can only speak to Hillsboro. I don't know what you do in other places, but is it just, I'm going to give examples. Like, I came to see Indiana Jones last summer specifically because of the way you decorated the outside of the theater. I've been to Star Wars movies at your place specifically because of the way you do the theater. Batman, you name it. I mean, what was there? Little Mermaid, you had the whole thing up. Yeah. I mean, what makes you so unique in that you do all this? And do you do this in all your theaters, or is it just Hillsboro? Sorry to the rest of them.
No, kind of. It's really hard to do the kind of premieres we do at the Orpheum everywhere, because we all live in Hillsboro, and it's just convenient, easy to do that. Now we've tried, like for instance, Shrek. We did Shrek's green premiere party whenever the fourth Shrek opened in 2010, I think. But we like encouraged everywhere green, and then make green popcorn, make green punch. We did it at all our theaters at the time. And that was like our single best day ever. Like, was that Friday night premiere. I mean, I remember we sold out the Roseland that night, like 700 seats. And so that was an example of a premiere we do everywhere. You know, those are really hard to coordinate though. And you can't necessarily go build a big set at all the theaters. Now we have built props and things that we've taken to other theaters, you know, but if you want the big grand theatrical experience of it, it's most likely you're going to find it in Hillsboro. And sometimes we'll, go plan something out for the others, but yeah, it's pretty much here. Now, my brother-in-law, Chris, and my sister, they live in Fort Madison, run our theater up there, which is the theater I grew up in. We bought that. So that was continuing our conversation from earlier. We also have the Fox in Fort Madison, the Temple in Mount Pleasant, the Majestic in Canton, and the Illinois Theater in Jacksonville to just kind of round out those theaters. But 2015, we bought the Fox up in Fort Madison, and Maddie got married to her husband then, and they moved up there, ran that theater. And so Chris and Maddie, they'll do some of that stuff up there, like those kinds of building sets and big premieres and that kind of stuff. But it's hard to just balance being a small family run business and doing these big things in 8 theaters. Like that's just, it's tough.
So, talk to me about your favorites. I mean, you've transformed the street in front of the theater at times.
Yeah. I would say, okay, so The Dark Knight was one of my favorites. That wasn't so much a theater transformation as it was just what we did. Like, I remember we staged my brother-in-law, who Noah Calvert, he was like 12, 10, that's time, and staged him in the front row. The theater was packed. It was sold out. It had been sold out for a month, but we staged him in there, and then Eric Gennard got the Joker costume all set up, and then I had my Batman suit on, and we staged this thing so where when the movie started, the previews would play, and we still had film at the time. So what you could do with film is you could stop it with the lamp still on, and once it got to a frame, like stop, it would burn up. You'd see the film burn on the screen. And so we staged it to play a preview, and then during that preview, have the projector shut down, and it does the voices, like that. And you see the burning on the screen, and the lights out, right? And then Eric Gennard comes running out from behind the curtain as the Joker, picks up my brother-in-law, throws him over my shoulder like he's kidnapping him out of there. And I mean, there's pandemonium in there. And then silence, and there was a pitch black theater, and all of a sudden, the bat signal goes out in the corner of the ceiling up there. We had a little gobo projector, and we did that. And then I came out from the back as Batman. And I mean, that was just a wild night, like the scream. I mean, it was just fun. And so I ran out. And so then after the movie, we had it staged where we had a police officer, Tim Sheldon out front, and he had the Joker over his car, the lights on and everything, as people were walking out in handcuffs. And then I was standing on what is the Gold Pan now, but I was standing on that building up there, and they shone the spotlight on me. And so people were walking out as I'm standing up there looking down. And then that was just the coolest thing. That was the coolest thing. And then we did another real grand. We actually topped it with Dark Knight Rises, where we had a whole, that was like an amusement park, that the Dark Knight Rises, because we went in and literally built structures inside the lobby to make it feel like, and we set it up like it was the opening of the Bruce Wayne whatever Foundation Arkham Asylum wing, the new wing for it, where they were. And so we had all the villains. My father-in-law played Bane, and I mean, he just looked like Bane. And we had him in back behind. So that first room you'd come in, there's the little exit way, but there was no door. It's just a curtain usually. Well, we had bars up there, and he's just standing back behind there, like looking at them as they're walking in. And then my mom was like the tour guide, and there was a big picture of, Bruce Wayne, and then lights would go out. We had strobe lights and sirens, and a security guard would come in with blood on his throat, fall down. And then, I mean, from the other side of the lobby, we had it all walled up. There was a little door, and they'd all bust through all the villains in it. I mean, it was just there is a Facebook, there's a YouTube video of it. I think you search Orpheum Theater Dark Knight Rises premiere, and you can watch this. But it was nuts. And then of course the Harry Potter ones were, I think Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. That was probably another. You know what, John? I'm sitting here thinking of all these things, and I'm just like, oh no, that was probably I think that was my. You know, and I mean, I could just go on and on and on here.
Well, that's what makes you so unique. So that's what I'm saying. There's, you know what? You don't go to Edwardsville to AMC and see a TIE fighter and an X-wing sitting out front. You don't see these things other places, Cary. And this is what I'm getting at. It's like you have this reputation around here that if people want the full experience, they go to the Orpheum.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so cool. I mean, you tie
in
everything. Even recently, Wonka premieres.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did the golden ticket with the sweet spot. Tell us, I mean, tell everyone about that.
That was, so that kind of gets into the other side of my, you know, my other business, I guess. Matt Sands and I were approached individually, approached about doing a video for the city for the Smithsonian coming, you know, the Smithsonian exhibit that was at the library over the summer. And then I remember, like, I think Tori Odell asked me, and then asked, you know, I said I'd get in touch with Matt, you know, because I knew Matt from church, and, you know, we were friends, kind of friends at the time. But then I said, yeah, I got to reach out. And then I finally talked to him, and then we did this thing, and we finally set the meeting, and like, man, the city, they want this video by end of the month. And what are we going to do? And then he goes, you know what? I have an idea. He's like, actually, let's reenact the first scene of Indiana Jones. Like Raiders, you know, that first opening scene where he steals the gold thing, runs from the, and we did that out with Bremer. So that was, and we called it Illinois Cary.
I know, it was awesome.
I loved it.
It was so good.
And then that was really fun. So then we're like, you know what? Let's do one for Mission Impossible. That's coming out soon. You know, we're like, not for anybody, we're just for ourselves to have fun doing. And so what we did is we did a Mission Impossible video where we had this group of my daughter and all her friends who were like 5 and 6, 7. And they were all like this candy.
A crime syndicate.
Crime syndicate. Yeah. It was a candy crime syndicate. And they stole all the candy and then they had this deal. It was, and so we did that. We had a lot of fun. And then Barbie. And so we just started doing these things. And then we were approached by Atlas 46 about, hey, we like these videos, you know, what, like, do you do this? Or like, they were like, for fun, you know, like, and so that kind of, they then wanted us to sort of form a small production company and start doing videos for them. And that's what we did then. We did a video for Atlas 46 in September of last year. And then and it was like got 3.5 million views on Twitter, something like that. And then we're like, okay, this is a thing. So we started doing that. We actually formed a LLC. It's called Tellmore Productions. And we were doing the Atlas videos. And then Dylan, I thought, well, we're doing all these videos for the Orpheum and then Atlas. I thought, man, Wonka's coming out in December. We have this beautiful candy store here. I mean, we need to do a video of something there, you know, just whatever. And then Dylan had this idea that we do a golden ticket, which duh.
Yeah,
do the golden ticket. Like, but then it was like, oh, we got to do a video with that. And so we just did the video with that, and that thing just blew the roof off the candy store, at least. I mean, they went through, I don't know, that like they opened with the first batch, because there's always like, the way he planned it out, he planned it to be a month-long, Dylan from the Sweet Spot, he planned it to be a month-long promotion, and he's set the shipments to come in like 3 batches, right? And the first batch came, there was like 1,500 bars, something like that, whatever. And it sold out in like 2 days. Like,
I know.
or the day of.
The day of.
Like,
I was there the day of, later in the night, and I went over to your theater to get some popcorn because I was at Opera House. Tony gets more shout outs than anyone I know. But I was and I go, I'm going to go get some popcorn. I'm going to get some Wonka bars. And the girl at your counter said, they're gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah. And so they had completely, and so then by the next one, like, oh my goodness, that was, and that promotion was just, it was kind of handed on a silver platter to it. You know, it's just like, there's this beautiful candy shop right across the street to this theater that's going to be playing Wonka. I mean, you can't get any better than that. But and then we had CBS, KMOV came down, did a story, and Steve Harris interviewed Dylan and me, and then we had a lot of fun with that. And it was just, it wasn't a big over the top set we built. I mean, we put like a little thing out front, but that was more just the promotion itself. Dylan selling those bars, just that promoted the movie for us. You know, that tie-in, you know, that was,
and it's all you business owners in Hillsboro that are just so in tune with each other and help each other out. That is so cool. It just doesn't seem to happen in other towns, does it?
Yeah.
I mean, do you have that kind of cross promotion in any of your other cities?
Now
I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry, Cary.
Maybe you know it's hard, but I think, you know, Fort Madison, they have a pretty good thing going on up there. But yeah, I mean, you're always going to have. I just don't. I feel. Yes, John. I do feel like the chemistry in Hillsboro is special, and it's just, there's something, you can't put your finger on it. Well, maybe you can. I don't know, but it just kind of all works together, and you don't even have to try. Like we did the Christmas Vacation block party.
Oh my God! December. Yeah, I forgot to put that in my notes. It was amazing.
That was unbelievably fun, and we had the most people we'd ever had at this complex for that movie. We actually showed it. We pulled down the screen at the Grand. I'm in the Grand Live right now, and we pulled down the screen and showed it in here to a sold out theater. I mean, it was in all auditoriums here, and that whole night was. We had a snow machine. Tony had bought a snow machine. I had bought a snow machine, and we had both of them going off the roof of the Orpheum, or the marquee of the Orpheum. And that was all because my mom was looking at the forecast from a month out and said, "Hey, it looks like it might be not very cold and chance of snow when we do this." We're like, "How can you tell? This is a month out. It's, yeah, we'll wait till we get there." Sure enough, a week, the 10-day forecast, a little more reliable. It's like 50 degrees. Or 60 degrees, it was, and so we're like, yeah, let's get the snow machines. We're just gonna make it snow, and that was the best thing we ever did, was the snow. Just beautiful.
And you sold out all 4 theaters for a 35-year-old movie.
I know. Can't even do that for Ghostbusters.
And the problem is, you always have to one up yourself. What's next year going to look like?
Yeah, so that was the issue with all these promotions. I mean, there was finally a time where we said, we just probably can't, because at some point it's just not practical. You're spending so much money on these promotions, you're not going to make any money on the
movie,
actual movie.
Yeah,
and so at some point it was like, there's kind of a line where we, if the idea comes for something that's over the top, like I think my favorite promotion last year, and probably one of my favorites we ever did, was the Mario movie premiere. And we had built a warp pipe tunnel entrance, and we had a little side one for kids to crawl through. And that was a fun promotion. Then we had it
looked so cool
and everything in there. And yeah, that was a fun one. But also, John, before I forget, because I know I might forget this, I know another of my favorites was The Hobbit, the first Hobbit movie. When it opened, we built a Hobbit hole with an actual door and you walked in that. We built it out front of the Orpheum, so you walked into that, and then you were in Bilbo Baggins' little house. We had a little desk, a little fireplace, all these little things set around there, and covered the door. So it was like you were in his hobbit hole in the Shire before you actually went to the theater, and it just looked so cool, and it was fun to build, and that was yeah.
Do you build all this, Cary? When you say are you building it all?
Yeah. Now I am. Yeah, my dad used to help, but it's hard to get him to help anymore. He does help, but it's basically where it used to be a family, kind of, we all conceive the idea and plan. It's just basically myself and my sister now, Alex. We kind of come up with the, hey, what are we gonna do? Let's do this or this or this, and then we kind of just do it. Yeah.
And we can't.
At least
we can't not talk about Munch Madness, which you have going on, where you had the selection show that looks like it came straight off of CBS Sports.
Yeah, we actually built that set on this stage here, and built the desk and everything, and that was a super fun video to do, and it didn't take. I'd say we were in here shooting for about an hour, because Dylan had scripted the whole thing out, and so we just kind of read the lines, and then Matt and I, though, we went and got all the other kind of shots throughout the week or a couple weeks leading up to it, and had a lot of fun putting that one together. And it's fun because that was like a 4-minute video, 5-minute video, which usually those are kind of tough to
get people to follow through on. Yeah,
just watch.
Yeah.
But a lot of people watch it. I feel like it was,
Yeah. Well, it's such a skill, and I try to every year do something to promote the toy drive over here in Mount Olive for the fire department.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do goofy stuff, but we don't hold a candle to what you have going on. It's so good. Oh. It is so good. So, Cary, I mean, let's talk about the Grand, right? So you're sitting in the Grand live right now, and I've been over there for 2 or 3 things. Improv, you had a comedian over there not too long ago where I think one of your opening acts renamed you Kyle. That was fun. But that poor guy, he was struggling when he started.
Yeah,
but
he didn't have a good night.
But I felt for him, so you've got this new theater, you've built the Grand into a building next to the Orpheum. What is it? Why is it? Why isn't all just the Orpheum? What's the difference and what makes the Grand special and unique?
Okay, so we had always, for years, wanted a third screen. And we initially had thought the Sherman building for a long time, and because it was sitting empty. And here had been a gym, and also then a Taekwondo studio. Son Clayton used it for his Taekwondo. And but there was a fire in 2019. I get a call. So it's 2 a.m. I'm out, and I feel my wife start hitting me. She's like, Cary, your dad's on the phone. And I'm like, oh. And so I woke up and like, hi, Dad. And he's like, Cary, the Orpheum's on fire. And I just threw the phone, got up, and I ran out because they were in Iowa at the time. And so Alex, my sister, she lives in the apartment still, but she was the only one there. And this is like, 2 a.m, something like that. And so I just like flew in my truck down there. And by the time I got here, the entire the Hillsboro fire department's just, they were on it. I mean, never. I can't say how much I appreciate the work they did to save the Orpheum. I mean, that was just amazing. And so, but Alex was fine. They're out on the street, and so this building was a charred wreck. I mean, we have video of the fire, and it was big. And so then the owners, we bought it. We approached the owners about maybe, hey, could we buy this and put maybe a third? We just wanted to kind of protect this property here.
Right.
We didn't know if we were going to do this here or what, but just to have the option if we wanted. And so we got the theater, bought it in a fire sale. That's all I have to say. That's my joke. But
Literally.
literally. But then we had a work day. We had some engineers come in and deem the areas that were not safe. You couldn't walk the second floor up towards the front. But then we had some work days in here where it was just tearing stuff out, just all the stuff. We had roll-off dumpsters out front, and it was, clearing it out. But then, John, that fateful day in March 2020 came and literally put this whole thing on the back burner. And then we had, I do remember that we had some bricks were falling from the top at the time. And so we had to build this temporary structure out front, right? And it was like these this plywood walls just to kind of keep people walking away from the building. If bricks fell, they'd fall inside. Well, I thought that's temporary. It's not going to be there that long. We'll get that tuck pointed, whatever. And then COVID hit, and this just sat empty for a year, 2 years, something like that. And I mean, we were literally got to the point where we don't know what we're going to do with it. The city, man, I think they were very patient, but also kind of like, yeah, okay, let's see. We don't, and I understand it too. They don't want a burned out building sitting down there forever. So then I remember it was October of 2021, and Dad, he was just like, man, we just got to get windows up there. So we just put windows up, had a guy come and put the windows in. And then that guy was like, I kind of do this. I could start working on this for you. And so that just kind of like snowballed into where by this next summer, we were in a full blown like operation here. Because I mean, business had thank God for Top Gun, but it had really come back. And so we were, because at the time we were sitting there thinking like, our movie theater's going to be a thing still. We didn't know. And, but then Top Gun, I mean, I remember the Ghostbusters Afterlife actually that came out in like fall of 2021. And that was a big movie for us too. And so we saw people were hungry for movies, and they wanted to go theater. And that kind of gave us what we felt like the freedom to be able to kind of make this into a theater then, because people were going to come back and so then fast forward to October of 2022. I don't know if my dates are right here, John. Yeah, 2 years ago, we opened this theater, and it's a third screen in one side, and then the other side is a live theater where we have, production. Yeah, we have comedians come. We've had improv groups. We've had musicians. We even have a guy named Blood Ebop, and he is a techno dance artist out of St. Louis. He's going to be doing a show here for all the teens and young people. So, yeah.
It's another resource. It's just another resource that you have out of your brain, out of a tragedy. Well, I know Son, that was his place, right?
Yeah.
And so this is something that, again, thought, your brain, your passion, your family's passion that brought something else new and unique to the city in which you love that has really added such a unique spot. There's no other places like that I can think of around where there's a dedicated live space for smaller events. Is there?
Right. And that was, I got to give like all the credit to my dad on that one. He wanted the live space. He wanted this space for the community to be able to come in and just live production. Now, this is not a full on 100, or 500 seat theater. It seats 70 in here, and it's a small black box theater. And so and a black box theater, that's the idea where you can kind of make it into whatever you want. Like right now I have some nice greenery. stage light, and so this is what I have now.
Right.
But you can basically do whatever you want. It's a blank canvas, and that was his thing he wanted, and if it were me, I would have just turned this into the fourth theater, like had just like Cinema 3 or the Grand Cinema. This would have been just another twin theater
Gotcha.
here, but props to him, because he had like the comedians coming in. That's what led to JJ Walker coming to the Orpheum in December.
I forgot about JJ. JJ was there.
Yes, he was, and it was all because we started doing stand-up comedy shows here, and made connections, and that's how we came there, is through those connections. So, which was just wild. That was a fun. I mean, that night was wild. So we've
covered, Cary. We've covered, how you got to Hillsboro, why you do what you do. You
Time
really,
flies, John.
you really talked about, kind of the story of how you got there. What, and why you've got the Grand, the promotions that you do. And for my listeners, if you've never gone to Hillsboro, go to Hillsboro on a weekend some night. You can see a movie, grab dinner. There's a couple of great places to visit. That the 2 breweries now. There's a place to stay overnight if you need to. It's a great little destination. But I think it's all based on people like you, Cary, and it's that you've seen the vision, you've invested in the community, and this is what separates what you all do in Hillsboro from a lot of the other communities that are out there. And because there's no great manufacturing area in Hillsboro anymore, but it's a great place to live. And that's what I think is so awesome. Let's come back. I got a couple of quick questions for you. Really, what are things about being in the movie business that people just don't think about?
Oh, man.
Like, do you watch every movie before you put it up?
Actually, no. In fact, I watch very few movies anymore here. It's not that I don't want to. I find it hard to watch movies in our theaters simply because I am
You're working
very super detail oriented. No. I can't, even off hours. I will see problems with everything. Like a screen is off, like just that much on the masking, and I'm just like, I can't do it. And then maybe there's a sound problem. Digital's helped with that because digital's a very clean picture and everything. But I just also don't take the time as much to watch movies at here. Now that's not to say that I don't love going to movie theaters. I just had like one of my favorite experiences ever at a movie theater in St. Louis. Just a month ago or so, I went to Alamo Drafthouse down there, and it's at the Foundry, and it was just a fun. I went and saw movie with Adam Driver,
Ferrari,
yes, and about Enzo Ferrari, and it was awesome. I just had a great experience, and that kind of recaptured, because when it's work, you're always thinking like about the other person and their needs and what do they want and how what's going to make it better for them. But it was nice to just go and see a movie and just take it in myself and like just experience it like that. But the long answer I gave you. The short answer is no, I don't watch every movie, but there are like absolute musts for me that I will not do anything else until I have watched that movie before it opens. So, but they're fewer and far between.
Why is your popcorn so much better than everywhere else?
It's the elves. I feel that we have elves that come out in the night, and they do something with the seasoning, and far be it for me to judge an elf. But
you're the only movie theater that if I'm in town, I will just stop and buy popcorn. I don't even go see the movie. And that started the to-go popcorn thing. That kind of started. I mean, we'd always sell popcorn to go off the street, but what really made it a thing was COVID, when that's the only thing we could do was sell popcorn to go. And so we got these 170 ounce tubs
And we kind of, I mean, I'll never say our popcorn was ever bad. But during that time, we perfected it, man. We perfected the ratio, ingredient, like everything, to where it is just, it's great popcorn, John.
In a world of prices going crazy, best movie deal is still a thing. Why? How do you make this work? Why is it so important to you?
Okay, so the reason we came up with the best movie deal was kind of a long time ago. That was to just combat the concession prices that were kind of outrageous. But they were outrageous, but also that's where theaters make their money. As you don't make money on the ticket as much, as you do the concession stands. And so, but we kind of came up with this high volume, low overhead thing where it was the best movie deal, where we could, if we sell this package to each person who comes in, then you're guaranteeing yourself this many dollars per person, sales per person, right? And so, but it was also to keep it affordable for families, because my greatest memories growing up were going to movie theaters with my family, and just whether it was California and Iowa or now it just that was, and that's what I feel families. It's an affordable thing for families to do, and I mean that it was, and that's what we're trying to keep it, an affordable thing for families to do. But you're not going to break the bank going to a movie on the weekend here. You're not going to, Kung Fu Panda 4 open. You take the kids on a matinee, kids prices. I mean, $7 includes admission, popcorn, soda. Like that is just unheard of
right
today. I mean, at movie theaters today. So, and a lot of that is because of COVID, because of the habits changing during that period of time, and the streaming services coming out, and people, there was a real fear there, and we're still, I wouldn't say we're completely out of the clear yet, but it's just easier to stay home and not go out to the movies. And especially, you're not going to go out to a movie if you're a family. You're not going to go out to a movie if it's costing you $100 to do this. A family of four should never pay $100 to go to a movie and get concessions. That's outrageous. And that's what I feel that's what's driving families away from the movie theater. And that's what's basically, if the other theaters around the country don't start doing something about this, I feel
it's tough.
It's my opinion that it's going to just keep driving them away.
Well, you're a value. It's fun. You make it fun. Every movie before it's not every movie. Do you just do this on Friday and Saturdays? You're up front. Every time I see, like I bumped into you like a week ago, Cary, and you weren't in a suit, and it's maybe the first time I've never seen you dressed up. And here you are at 11 o'clock on a Thursday. What you introduce the movie, you tell them what it's about, what's coming next, and you spin the wheel for fun. Yeah. I mean, these are things that make you unique and what it is you do. You keep prices affordable, and you're right. I mean, when my kids were both at home and we go to some AMC theater, and it was $13-14 ticket to see an Avengers movie, plus everybody wants popcorn at $12 a pop. It's not a cheap night for anyone. But no, the Orpheum special, I mean, I've been going there since my wife and I dated back in the 80s, right? Yeah. So it's so cool that it's still there and it's still awesome, and what it is you do there is very cool. What are you looking forward to here in 2024? What's the big things that you're thinking about, you're planning toward, or there big movies now that are coming that you're thinking, man, I can't wait to do something for X, whatever?
Yeah. So what am I excited? I know we got Inside Out 2 coming in June, and I'm thinking that's going to be, I think it's going to be big. Disney's, they haven't had a great recent track record, as far as box office goes, but I think that one could really kind of change their fortunes at the theaters nowadays. And then I'm excited about, actually, I'm really excited about Ghostbusters. I haven't seen it yet, but that one's kid of the late 80s, I watched Ghostbusters all the time, like the real Ghostbusters, that cartoon. And,
yes.
And so that was
you and my sister-in-law, who gets her third shout out in 4 weeks. Ashley, here you go. She loved the real Ghostbusters. So go ahead, Cary.
Yep. So there's that. There's Deadpool, Wolverine. That's coming out. That looks amazing. And then we've got oh my gosh, I'm going blank, John. I just what movies are coming out? You got to go to bestmoviedeal.com to find out.
That's right. That's right. I should ask you do you like these 4-hour movies? Is that good for your business? Like Oppenheimer comes out, and I also say I'm of a part of my age. It's like I don't want to sit there for 4 hours, and I kind of now obviously it did well, but
it did.
Are these 2.5 hours and on up? Are they good for you? Bad for you? What does that mean for you?
The 2.5 hour movies. The only thing it really affects is payroll. Usually, it's always been pretty true that usually a 3-hour movie will do big business. Lord of the Rings, Titanic, Avatar, like they're all 3-hour movies that did real well. Now, Killers of the Flower Moon was a different story. That was a 4-hour movie, and unfortunately, 4-hour movies just don't do business. So, that played last summer. And but then Oppenheimer, the same thing. Oppenheimer was a 3-hour movie, and we did huge with it. Like that was Barbenheimer. You remember? Yeah. Barbie opened at the same time. That was just the time to be at the Orpheum, man. That place was cooking. That time, So, but as far as I know. Despicable Me 4, July 4th weekend. I mean, minions up and down the street. It's going to be wild, and just get ready. So there's that.
Well, Cary, I can't thank you enough for your time. As I said, kind of at the outset, maybe we said this off air, Cary. Like I tried to get you back when I did my original, just audio only podcast, and when I went to message you for this one, that was the last message I sent to you in like May of 2017 or something, and you had ghosted me then. So I'm so happy you got back to me now.
That was a month. That was a month before my brain tumor.
Oh,
because that was June of 2017. I had a brain tumor, and found out I had a whole thing. But I was not in a good state of mind then. I probably was, just all over the place. So.
I'm so glad you're. So now you're all good now. Everything's good.
Oh yeah. It's I 2017 found out. I was playing drums and then got down and collapsed. I started making a weird sound and then fell down. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is how I die. And because I was like, everything was going dark and I just felt everything closing. But it was actually just turned out I had a seizure, and I had never had a seizure before, so I didn't really know what I was going through. And but it was at church, and it was just so happened that Sunday we had 2 nurse practitioners. My wife's a nurse. We had a CRNA on stage. An anesthesiologist there, like all around me, and it was just that was crazy, John. But then I had a surgery at Barnes on July 3rd of that year. Removed it, and I've been good since. I've been back for MRIs every few months. Now it's every year, once a year, but nothing. Good.
I am so glad you're doing well and doing healthy. I'm going to say this. Shout out to my friend Pat Weinberner, who you don't know, but I do. Just going through something very similar. And Pat, I know you listen to this show. Maybe Melanie's playing it for you while you're going through recovery. Pat, stay strong, my brother. You're going to get through this just like Cary did. So, Cary, thank you so much. I love it. The thing, I say this to almost every guest I have. I know you, but I feel like I really know you better now. And this is what, I'd really do this show for, because I sure as heck ain't making any money doing it. But it's fun. It's fun for me to do this. It's fun for me to get the word out to the hundreds of folks that listen and watch to this show right here in Montgomery, Macoupin, Madison Bond area every week. And I'm glad to bring it to you. And I'm so happy that I got to bring the story of Cary Eisentraut. Cary, you got any last words for any of these folks out here? Repeat, where do they go to come find you every week?
Well, you can find me at the Orpheum and Grand Theaters, 316 South Main Street. At 7 o'clock at night, we'll spin the wheel at the Orpheum, and Friday and Saturday nights, you can find me there. And then the rest of the week, I'm hiding, and good luck getting a hold of me. So.
I know where to find you. I find you there all the time. Right.
We're not going to give Tony another shout out. Okay?
And they can find you online at
bestmoviedeal.com.
That's it. Cary, thank you so much. Cary Eisentraut, this is John. Peace out.